Ethan Cole was just an ordinary human engineer working at the Outer Rim spaceport of Epsilon Prime. He fixed broken ships, calibrated engines, and tried to stay out of the way of soldiers and smugglers. For him, every day was the same until a Zereth battleship landed at Dock 7. The Zereth were not like humans. They were tall, powerful, and proud, their skin faintly glowing with golden energy veins. They were a warrior race, known for their discipline and strength, and everyone feared them. When the ship door opened, a female warrior stepped out. Her armor gleamed like molten fire, and her long silver-white hair moved like liquid light. Her name was Captain Vialira. She was the kind of warrior whose name made others whisper. Ethan had seen aliens before, but never anyone like her. Her movements were sharp and graceful, her eyes bright amber, her expression calm, yet dangerous. Ethan, standing near his repair console, froze. He was not ready for her beauty or her presence. He simply stared like an idiot while she gave orders to her crew. Then, when she turned toward him, he panicked and tried to act casual. He blurted out the first thing that came to his mind. Nice tail." The hangar went silent. Every Zereth warrior stopped moving. Even the sound of engines seemed to fade. Vialira turned her head slowly toward him. Her glowing eyes locked on his. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. She took a few steps forward, her boots clicking on the metal floor. The air felt heavy. Ethan's mind screamed, "What did I just say?" He had meant it as a joke, but from the way everyone was looking at him, it was clearly not just a joke to them. Vialira removed her helmet and tilted her head slightly. Her face was beautiful yet unreadable. Then she spoke in a deep, calm voice. "Human, are you claiming me?" Ethan blinked, confused. "Claiming you? No, I just—" But before he could finish, one of her soldiers spoke. "It is spoken. The bond is declared." Ethan froze. "Bond? What bond?" Vialira looked at him with a faint smile, the first any human had ever seen from her. "In our culture," she said, "complimenting a warrior's tale means one thing, a declaration of life-made intention." She walked closer until she stood right in front of him, towering over him. "Your words cannot be taken back," she continued softly. "And I accept." Ethan's jaw dropped. "Accept? Wait, no." But she had already taken a metallic band from her belt. It shimmered with blue light as she placed it around his wrist. The band sealed with a soft click. "This is our bond mark," she said. "From this day, you are under my protection and my claim." The soldiers bowed slightly to her, then to Ethan. Everyone looked at him with respect, or maybe pity. He had no idea what had just happened. When she walked away to oversee her ship repairs, Ethan finally whispered, "What in the galaxy just happened?" His robot assistant, a floating drone named Pix, beeped and said, "Congratulations, Ethan, you are now engaged, possibly for life." He groaned and sat on a cargo box. He wanted to explain it was a misunderstanding, but every time Vialira looked at him from across the hangar, something in his chest tightened. There was power in her gaze, and yet, something gentle too. Later that night, when he returned to his small quarters, Ethan stared at the glowing bracelet on his wrist. It pulsed softly, syncing with his heartbeat. He tried to remove it, but it didn't budge. Pix floated nearby, scanning it. "It's a Zereth life bond seal," the drone said. "Breaking it would be seen as an insult to her clan." Ethan sighed. "Great. I insulted her by accident, and now if I try to undo it, I insult her again." Pix beeped. "That's accurate." He leaned back on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere deep inside, he wasn't sure if he wanted to undo it anymore. There was something about the way she said "you belong to me." It wasn't threatening, it was protective, almost kind. He smiled faintly. "Maybe I should stop talking so much," he muttered. Pix blinked its lights. Too late for that, life mate. Outside his window, the alien sky glowed with twin moons. And far away, the warrior captain looked up at the same stars. Her lips curved into a quiet smile. For her, the bond had already begun. Ethan woke up the next morning to the sound of someone knocking on his door. He blinked, half asleep, then realized the knocking was not on the door. It was on the metal wall itself, echoing through his small cabin. Before he could respond, the door slid open with a sharp hiss. Standing there was Vialira, the Zereth warrior herself, her tall figure filling the doorway like a living flame. "Human," she said, "you did not come to morning meal. You will eat with me." Ethan sat up fast, his hair a mess. Wait, what? Eat with you. She tilted her head slightly, her golden eyes narrowing. You are my chosen mate. Your place is beside me. He froze, realizing she was serious. Right, of course, he muttered. The spaceport cafeteria fell silent when they walked in together. Humans, traders, and alien pilots stared as the giant warrior and the small engineer sat side by side. Va Lyra ignored everyone. She placed food before him, mostly glowing Xerith fruit and spiced meat cubes. When he hesitated, she pushed a piece toward him. Eat, she ordered. Ethan swallowed nervously and did as told. It wasn't bad, kind of sweet and hot at the same time. So, he said between bites, about that whole bond thing. Maybe we could, cancel it. Va Lyra raised one eyebrow, her tail swishing slowly behind her. Cancel? Her tone made him regret speaking. Breaking a bond means dishonor, she said quietly. It is a challenge to life itself. Ethan gulped. Right. So, maybe not cancel then. She leaned closer, her golden eyes glowing softly. You fear me, she said, not as a question but as a statement. He smiled nervously. Fear? No, just healthy caution. To his surprise, she laughed, a sound low and melodic, like music from deep metal strings. It was the first time he heard her laugh, and something in his chest fluttered. For the next few days, she followed him everywhere. When he repaired engines, she stood nearby, watching. When he went to the market, she carried his tools for him. And when other aliens tried to talk to him, she glared until they left. Protective much? He whispered one evening. Va Lyra answered simply. A mate's safety is sacred. Ethan tried to explain that humans didn't form bonds this quickly. She listened, but didn't seem to care. You spoke the words, Ethan of Earth, she said one night while standing under the twin moons, and I accepted. It is written. We are bound. He sighed. You really think I meant that? She looked at him with something softer in her gaze. Meaning is less important than action. You could have denied it with fear or insult, but you did not. That shows courage. Ethan stared at her. Or stupidity, he muttered. She smiled faintly. Courage and stupidity often share the same path. Despite himself, Ethan began to like her company. She was fierce, but surprisingly gentle when she spoke to him. Sometimes she asked about Earth, about oceans, forests, and rain. When he told her about sunsets, she listened like a child hearing a fairy tale. Her curiosity made him forget that she was a warrior feared by many. One night, he found her sitting outside the hangar alone, her armor beside her. The glow from her horns was dimmer than usual. You okay? He asked, sitting down next to her. She looked at him and said quietly, Xerith warriors do not rest easily. We are trained to fight, not to feel. But when I look at you, I feel something strange. Ethan's heart skipped. Strange how? Her voice softened. Like I do not need to fight. Like peace is not weakness. For a long moment, neither spoke. The stars above shimmered, and the quiet hum of the station filled the air. Ethan wanted to tell her it was the same for him, that when she was around, everything felt less lonely. But before he could, an alarm blared through the station. A red warning light flashed across the walls. Va Lyra stood instantly, her eyes sharp again. Pirates, she said, drawing her plasma blade. They attacked the cargo bay. Ethan jumped up. You're going to fight? She turned her head slightly, her voice calm but cold. I will protect my bondmate. Before he could argue, she was already gone. Ethan ran after her, heart racing, the bracelet on his wrist glowing brighter, pulsing with her heartbeat through some strange alien link. He had no idea what was happening, but one thing was clear. The wrong compliment had just pulled him into the fight of his life. The alarm screamed across Epsilon Prime Station, red lights flashing through the corridors like rivers of fire. Ethan ran after Va Lyra, his heart pounding, the glowing bond bracelet on his wrist pulsing faster with every step. He could feel her through it somehow, her heartbeat, her strength, her calm fury. When he reached the cargo bay, chaos had already begun. A group of space pirates in black armor were blasting the docking shields, trying to steal fuel cores. Va Lyra stood between them and the exit, her plasma blade burning bright blue, her armor reflecting the explosions like a mirror of war. Ethan ducked behind a crate. This is insane, he whispered. Pix, his small AI drone, hovered beside him. Technically, Yes, but statistically exciting. Not helping. Ethan snapped, peeking out just in time to see Valera move. She was fast, faster than human eyes could follow. She leaped through smoke and flame, her blade cutting through pirate armor like paper, each strike precise and silent. When a plasma bolt flew toward her back, Ethan yelled, "Behind you!" But she didn't turn. She raised her tail, metal-tipped and glowing, and deflected the shot with a flick. Ethan's jaw dropped. Okay, that's unfairly cool. Still, there were too many of them. The pirates brought heavy drones, flying turrets that fired in bursts. Valera was strong, but she couldn't block everything forever. Ethan looked around desperately for something, anything to help. He spotted an old cargo loader, half broken, but its power cell still glowed. "Pix, can we move that thing?" he asked. "Manually, yes," the drone replied. "But human endurance might not survive impact." Ethan grinned. "We'll find out." He ran to the loader, climbing into the driver's seat, sparks flying from its circuits. He slammed his fist against the ignition. The engine roared awake with a metallic growl. He aimed the heavy machine straight at the pirate's line and shouted, "Valera, down." She didn't question him. She ducked and rolled aside just as Ethan drove the loader forward, smashing into the attackers. The pirates scattered, their drones crashing into crates, fire blooming across the bay. Ethan could barely steer, smoke filling his eyes. Then, boom, the loader exploded, throwing him backward into the wall. When he opened his eyes, everything was blurry. Through the smoke, he saw Valera standing over him, her armor scorched but her eyes fierce. She knelt, lifting him easily in her arms. "You are a fool," she said softly, "but you are my fool." He groaned. "Did we win?" Her lips curved into a rare smile. "We did." She carried him out as the emergency teams arrived. To everyone's surprise, she refused to let the medics touch him. "He is mine to guard," she said simply, holding him close as if he were something fragile. Later, when he woke in the infirmary, the lights were dim and quiet. Valera sat beside his bed, polishing her blade, her armor resting against the wall. He looked at her through half-open eyes. "You stayed," he murmured. She didn't look up. "The bond demands it." He smiled weakly. "You sure it's not just because you care?" That made her pause. Her hand froze mid-movement. Finally, she said in a low voice, "Zereth warriors are not taught to care." "Then maybe you should learn," he whispered. For the first time, she looked uncertain, her golden eyes softer than he had ever seen them. Outside the medical bay window, the stars glimmered faintly. Ethan reached out, touching the glowing bracelet on his wrist. It pulsed once, then twice, in rhythm with her heartbeat. He didn't know what it meant, but somehow, he felt connected to her more than ever. Before leaving, Valera stood at the doorway and said quietly, "You risked your life for me, human." He smirked. "That's what people do for their partners, right?" Her tail flicked once behind her, her voice soft as a whisper. "Yes, my mate." Ethan sighed after she left, hiding a small smile. Pix floated beside him, beeping cheerfully. "You are now officially part of an interspecies relationship. Congratulations." Ethan chuckled. "Just my luck," he said, looking at the stars again. Somewhere out there, he knew, his life had just become much more complicated, and maybe, just maybe, a little more amazing. A week after the pirate attack, the spaceport finally returned to silence. The repairs were done, the alarms gone, but Ethan's life had changed forever. Everywhere he went, people whispered about the human who bonded as Zereth captain. Some called him lucky, some called him insane, and Ethan wasn't sure which one was true. Valera had become even more protective since that day. She followed him through the hangars, stood beside him during briefings, and even walked him back to his quarters each night. It was both comforting and terrifying. He had once dreamed of adventure among the stars, but not like this. Not as the mate of a warrior feared by half the galaxy. One evening, Valera came to him in full armor, her horns polished, her expression serious. "It is time," she said. "We travel to my world. My clan must see you." Ethan blinked. "See me?" "As in meet the family." Her tail flicked. "To be accepted as my bondmate, you must pass the clan trial." Ethan groaned. "Please tell me it's not the kind of trial where I get stabbed." She smiled faintly. "Only if you fail." Hours later, they boarded her sleek warship. Ethan sat nervously while Violira stood at the front, commanding her crew with calm precision. He couldn't help but notice how every Zereth on the ship respected her. She wasn't just a captain, she was a symbol of strength. And somehow, she had chosen him, a simple human engineer who once made a stupid joke about a tail. When they arrived at her homeworld, Zereth Prime, Ethan was speechless. The planet glowed red and gold beneath twin suns, the cities carved into black mountains like living fortresses. As they landed, thousands of eyes turned toward them. Va Lyra led him through the stone halls of her clan fortress. Every step echoed, every gaze burned with judgment. At the throne sat an elder Zereth, massive, scarred, and silent. His horns were long and cracked like old stone, his eyes glowing deep crimson. He was Violira's father, the High Warlord. "You bring a human," the elder said, his voice rumbling through the hall like thunder. "Yes, father," Violira answered proudly. "He is my chosen mate." The elder's eyes narrowed. "A fragile being of flesh and fear. This is your choice." Ethan tried to smile. "Nice to meet you, sir." The elder did not smile back. He stood, towering over them both. "The clan accepts only strength," he said. "If he is to be your mate, he must prove he is not weak." Before Ethan could ask how, a massive warrior stepped forward. Clad in silver armor, the warrior growled, "I challenge the human." Ethan's heart sank. "I was afraid you'd say that." Va Lyra stepped in front of him, her voice firm. "He will not fight." The elder raised his hand. "Then he is unworthy." Ethan took a deep breath. He was terrified, but he saw the look in Valira's eyes. She was ready to fight her own people for him. That he couldn't allow. "No," he said softly, stepping beside her. "I'll do it." Va Lyra's eyes widened. "Ethan." He shook his head. "You've fought for me enough. Let me fight for us." The crowd roared as Ethan entered the ring. His opponent stood twice his size, armed with a training staff that glowed red. Ethan had nothing but a shock baton and his courage. When the match began, he barely dodged the first blow. It cracked the ground where he had stood. Pain shot through his arm as the second strike hit his side. He fell, gasping, but refused to give up. From the edge of the arena, Va Lyra shouted, "Stand, Ethan of Earth." He forced himself up, blood in his mouth. He remembered what she once said. Courage and stupidity share the same path. He laughed weakly. "Guess I'm walking it now." The Zereth charged again. Ethan sidestepped, grabbed a broken metal piece from the ground, and jammed it into the warrior's power core. A flash of sparks, then silence. The arena fell quiet. Ethan stood trembling, barely on his feet. The elder's eyes glowed, then slowly he nodded. "Strength is not only in muscle," he said, "but in heart." The hall erupted in cheers. Va Lyra ran to Ethan, catching him before he collapsed. "You are a fool," she whispered, "but my fool forever." As the crowd bowed before the new bondmates, Ethan looked up at her, dazed but smiling. "Does this mean your dad likes me now?" he murmured. Va Lyra smirked. "He will learn." And above them, the golden banners of the Zereth clan waved in the rising suns. The human who once said, "Nice tail," had just earned the respect of an alien empire. Days passed after the trial, and Ethan's name spread across the Zereth capital like a quiet storm. The story of the human who fought for love reached every fortress and every outpost. Some called him brave, others called him foolish, but none could deny that he had earned the High Warlord's respect. Ethan now lived inside Valira's clan fortress, a place of black stone walls and glowing crystal light. The rooms were massive and echoing, built for creatures twice his size. He spent his mornings learning Zereth customs and evenings fixing machines for the clan. At first, they watched him with suspicion, but slowly, some began to greet him with cautious respect. Va Lyra trained daily in the courtyard, her armor glinting under the twin suns. Ethan often watched her from the edge, still amazed at her discipline. He noticed how she never backed down, how every strike carried pride and purpose. Sometimes she caught him staring, and her lips curved slightly. "You watch me like prey watches fire," she teased one morning. He laughed. "Maybe because you are fire." Her tail flicked in amusement. "Careful, human, you might get burned." Though life seemed peaceful, something felt wrong beneath the surface. One evening, as Ethan repaired a damaged communication tower, he overheard two warriors whispering in the shadows. The council grows restless, one said. A human cannot sit beside a captain. It breaks the old law. Ethan froze, pretending not to listen. When he returned to Vialira that night, she was sharpening her blade in silence. You heard them, she said softly without turning. He nodded. They don't want me here. They fear change, she replied, and fear often turns to betrayal. That night, a strange energy hummed through his bracelet. Ethan sat up in bed. The pulse was faster, stronger. Moments later, Vialira entered his room, her armor half-fastened, eyes glowing. Someone is coming, she said. Stay behind me. Before he could respond, an explosion shattered the corridor wall. Smoke and fire filled the air. Masked Zereth soldiers stormed in, their armor marked with symbols of a rival clan. They were here to end the bond, to free their people from the shame of a human mate. Vialira moved like lightning, her blade slicing through the first two attackers. Ethan ducked behind the console, sparks raining down. He felt helpless, but then he noticed the tower controls beside him. If he could power the defense field, they could seal the chamber. He crawled to the console under heavy fire, his fingers flying over alien controls. The screen flickered, the system half-fried. Come on, he whispered. Don't die on me now. A plasma bolt hit the wall inches from his face, but he didn't stop. Finally, the shields hummed to life, sealing the room with a glowing barrier. Vialira turned, breathing hard. Her armor cracked, but her eyes fierce. You disobeyed my order, she said. He grinned weakly. Yeah, but it worked. Her expression softened. You risk your life for mine too easily. He shrugged. Guess it's a human thing. She stepped closer, her voice low. Then humanity is a dangerous gift. When the smoke cleared, the clan healers arrived, the attackers captured. The High Warlord himself entered, his heavy steps echoing. He looked at Ethan for a long moment before saying, You protected what is ours, not as a guest, but as kin. Ethan bowed his head. I just did what anyone would do. The Warlord smiled faintly. No, if you would, that is why she chose you. That night, Vialira and Ethan stood on the balcony overlooking the burning horizon. The twin moons rose, painting silver light across their faces. You could leave, she said quietly. The bond cannot chain you forever. Ethan looked at her, the glow of her eyes reflected in his bracelet. Maybe I don't want to leave, he said. Maybe I'm exactly where I should be. She turned toward him, her hand brushing his wrist. The stars are watching, human, she whispered, and they seem jealous. He smiled, then let them watch. Far below, the fortress torches flickered. The human who once made a joke about a tale now stood beside an alien warrior as her equal. And somewhere deep within the ancient halls of the Zereth, the prophecy of a bond between two worlds began to awaken. The next dawn came with quiet tension. The fortress was calm on the surface, but the air carried a strange unease. Ethan could feel it even in the silence between heartbeats. Whispers traveled through the halls like ghosts, words of revenge and purity. The rival clans were not done. Vialira stood on the balcony, her armor polished, her horns gleaming like molten gold under the rising suns. When Ethan joined her, she turned slowly. The council wants proof, she said, proof that our bond is not a mistake. He frowned. What kind of proof? Her eyes softened. A journey into the old temple, the place where the first Zereth met the first traveler from the stars. Ethan blinked. Wait, you mean a human? She nodded once. Our legends speak of a visitor from your kind, long before humans even knew the sky. The ship that carried them across the crimson wasteland was silent except for the hum of the engines. Vialira sat at the helm, her tail coiling slowly as if deep in thought. Ethan watched her, wondering what she was thinking. After a while, she spoke without looking at him. You changed me, human. He raised an eyebrow. That sounds dangerous. She smiled faintly. It is. When they arrived, the temple rose from the sand like a mountain of obsidian glass. Ancient runes glowed faintly on its surface. The air around it was heavy, almost alive. As they entered, the light from their wristbands dimmed. The darkness seemed to hum. Feels like this place is watching us, Ethan muttered. Vialira's voice was low. Perhaps it is. Inside the chamber, murals stretched across the walls. Images of tall warriors and smaller beings with human-like faces. Ethan stepped closer, running his fingers across the carvings. "They're human," he whispered. "This is thousands of years old." Vialira nodded. "Our ancestors believed a great flame came from beyond the stars, a union between two kinds of life, yours and mine." Before he could respond, the ground trembled. A deep rumble echoed through the halls. From the shadows emerged armored figures, the rival clan, led by a warrior with blood-red armor and jagged horns. Vialira hissed, her blade igniting with a blue glow. "You follow us even here?" she growled. The rival leader sneered. "You bring impurity into sacred ground. Captain, the human dies today." Ethan grabbed a piece of broken pillar as cover, the air thick with tension. Blasts of energy hit the walls, shaking dust and fire loose. Vialira fought like lightning again, her blade flashing arcs of blue light. But there were too many of them. Ethan saw one of the warriors charging from behind her. Without thinking, he ran forward, pushing her aside, taking the hit across his shoulder. Pain seared through him, the bond bracelet flaring bright gold. Vialira turned, her eyes burning like suns. She roared, the sound echoing through the temple. In that moment, the carvings on the walls glowed. The ancient runes pulsed with energy. A shockwave burst outward, sending the attackers flying. Ethan fell to his knees, gasping. Vialira caught him, her hands trembling. "What have you done?" she whispered. He coughed weakly. "Just helped." The golden light spread from the bracelet, weaving patterns through the temple floor. Then a projection appeared above them. A tall being, neither human nor Zereth. Its voice was calm, ancient. The bond of courage and compassion unites the stars once more. Vialira and Ethan stared as the vision continued. "Our species were never enemies, only reflections of one another," it said. "The flame that connects life burns again." As the light faded, the rival warriors fled in fear, whispering of prophecy. Vialira helped Ethan stand, her voice trembling slightly. "You carry the spark of the first traveler." He smiled faintly. "Guess humans are good for more than bad compliments." Her laugh was soft and full of pride. "You are not just my mate now, Ethan of Earth. You are part of our legend." Outside, the twin suns rose higher, their light washing over the black temple. For the first time, both of them felt the truth of their bond. It wasn't just accident or mistake. It was destiny. And as they walked away, hand in hand, the ancient carvings behind them glowed once more. A symbol of a human and a Zereth warrior, standing together beneath the stars. The journey back to Zereth Prime was silent, but heavy with meaning. Ethan and Vialira sat side by side on the bridge, the faint glow from the bond bracelet lighting their hands. Neither spoke for a long time, both lost in the weight of what they had seen. The prophecy, the ancient vision, and the truth that their bond was not just accident, it was destiny written in starlight. When their ship entered the atmosphere, messages already filled the channels. The rival clan had fled, but their story had spread faster than fire. Some believed the prophecy, others called it lies. The High Council demanded their presence. The Grand Hall was filled with warriors, priests, and counselors. The warlord stood at the center, his crimson eyes glowing like molten suns. "You entered the Forbidden Temple," he said, "and lived." Vialira bowed her head. "Yes, Father," and the temple spoke. It named our bond a sign of renewal. The crowd murmured, disbelief and awe rippling through them. Ethan stood straight, his voice calm, though his hands trembled. "The temple said our races were connected long ago. Maybe it's time we remembered that." One counselor hissed, "A human cannot speak of our faith." But the warlord raised his hand, silencing the hall. "Let him speak," he commanded. Ethan took a breath. "I didn't come here to change anyone. I just made a mistake, said something stupid, and somehow, it turned into something that changed both of us." A few laughs broke the tension. Even Vialira smiled slightly. He continued, "Maybe that's what the universe wanted, to remind us that understanding begins with mistakes." The warlord looked between them, then slowly descended the stairs. He stopped before Ethan, his massive form casting a shadow over him. For a moment, no one breathed. Then the warlord placed his hand over their joined wrists, the golden bracelet glowing between them. "The bond is recognized," he said, his voice deep and final. "Not as shame, but as symbol. The crowd gasped, some in joy, some in anger. Va Lyra's tail flicked proudly, her eyes shining with victory. Ethan exhaled in disbelief. So, we're official. She smiled. By the stars and blood of the Zereth, yes. But peace never comes without a price. Outside the hall, an explosion shook the fortress walls. The rival clan, desperate and enraged, had launched their final attack. The city lights turned red, sirens howled, and the sky filled with streaks of fire. Va Lyra grabbed her sword. Stay behind me. Ethan shook his head. Not this time. We face it together. They ran into the storm of chaos, their bond pulsing like a heartbeat of gold and blue. Warriors clashed under burning skies. Plasma bolts lit the horizon. Ethan ducked under debris, guiding injured civilians to safety while Va Lyra cut through enemy lines like living lightning. When the enemy leader appeared, a scarred Zereth wielding twin blades, Va Lyra met him head-on. Their fight was brutal, sparks and light bursting with every strike. Ethan watched in horror as the leader aimed for her unguarded side. Without thinking, he rushed forward, tackling the warrior off balance. They crashed to the ground, and Va Lyra finished the fight with a single sweeping strike. Silence fell across the battlefield. The fires dimmed, the attackers fled, and the twin moons rose once more. Va Lyra turned toward Ethan, breathless, armor cracked, eyes soft. You saved me again, she whispered. He smiled. We save each other, remember? Back in the hall, the warlord raised the Zereth banner, now marked with a new symbol, a human hand and a Zereth tail intertwined. The prophecy is fulfilled, he declared. 2 worlds will stand as one. Weeks later, peace treaties began across systems. Humans and Zereth exchanged knowledge, trade, and stories. And at the heart of it all were the two who started it by accident. Ethan and Va Lyra, standing side by side as ambassadors of 2 species. One night, as they stood on the same balcony where it had all begun, Ethan looked up at the stars. Crazy, isn't it? He said softly. All this because I said nice tail. Va Lyra chuckled, her golden eyes glowing warmly. Perhaps destiny enjoys foolish beginnings. He took her hand, the bracelet between them shimmering gently. Whatever it was, he said, I'm glad it found us. She leaned close, her voice a whisper carried by the wind. As am I, my human. And together, they watched the stars burn brighter than ever. Not as human or Zereth, but as one.